Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Gaming Lounge Podcast, episode 72. Once again, I'm your host, Sebastian, and as always, I'm joined by Dory. How you doing, Dory?
I'm great. I am very excited today to talk about Hades 2. I was very tempted to sing Scylla and the sirens. I'm going to claw out your eyes and drown you to death, but I will just instead say it's a very good song, and I'm like I said, super excited to talk about Hades 2. I actually almost did put double my time from what I had before, which is about 35 hours. And if Ghost of Yote hadn't come out, I probably would have. But besides Hades 2, I guess we're going to talk about other stuff like Game Pass. Of course, we have to talk about that. The price going up. Seb's going to talk about Shinobi Art of Vengeance. And then Seb's also going to talk about Silent Hill F, which I gave a shot and just didn't really resonate with me after about an hour and a half, very sadly, because I loved actually Silent Hill 2. But yeah, the gameplay just wasn't, we'll talk about it. But yeah, so a mix of cool things and not so cool things today, or tonight, whenever you're watching. But yeah, it's finally spooky season. I'm very excited. Kim and I have started watching this Netflix limited season called Wayward, which has Toni Collette, and she's great as always. And then we've also started watching our spooky movies. So it's my favorite month of the year. I love the weather. I love horror. I love Halloween. It's Kim and I's anniversary this month. It's Zena's birthday this month. My dog. And so just a lot of stuff happening in the same month, but very excited to get into all the gaming stuff.
But unfortunately, we have to start off with some negative news. As unless you lived under a rock and you don't pay attention to gaming news, Game Pass prices went up, and it was a major outrage online. Massive cancellations. The website to cancel your subscription even crashed. It was so bad. And I am going to be very negative about this news. Even though I don't use Game Pass, but it's still really shitty. And let's get started with it. So the main thing to get out of it is the price for Ultimate jumped 50%. It went from $20 a month to $30 a month, which amounts to $120 extra a year. And the reaction was very negative, as I said. Man, it was pretty bad, right? Like people were burning down the building.
Super bad.
Yeah. So to justify the increase in price of Ultimate, Microsoft has increased the number of day one releases per year to 75. And then they added Fortnite Crew and Ubisoft Plus Classics for the first time ever. And they also made upgrades to their Xbox Cloud Gaming streaming quality. The Ubisoft Plus Classics, valued at $8 a month per platform, is now part of Ultimate. Starting November 18th, Fortnite Crew, which itself costs $12 a month, will be included in Ultimate and will access to the Fortnite Battle Pass and 1,000 V-Bucks each month. The cloud gaming boost amounts to better performance, and Ultimate subscribers, quote, exclusively enjoy our best quality streaming and shortest wait times, Microsoft said. Xbox Cloud Gaming has also officially exited beta as part of our commitment to make gameplay smoother and more responsive. Microsoft said that the new $30 a month Ultimate price reflects the expanded catalog, new partner benefits, and upgraded cloud gaming experience. So what are the differences? Xbox Game Pass Ultimate is $30 a month from $20 a month. The premium is $15 a month, which is the same as the old standard subscription. And then there's Game Pass Essential, which is $10 a month, which is the same as the core subscription. And then the PC Game Pass went up to $16.49 a month, which is up from $12 a month. And the updated pricing went into effect on October 1st for new subscribers and will go into effect on November 4th for current subscribers. As part of the announcement, Microsoft added more than 45 new games to Game Pass, including Hogwarts Legacy, and there's a list of more games than that. Despite these extras, has the Ultimate price rise forced a rethink amongst Game Pass subscribers? That's the big question, right? So, Dory, do you think it's worth $30 a month?
No. No. I do not. And I already wasn't going to pay for Ultimate. I was already pretty iffy. I got what I wanted. I was getting what I wanted out of my 11.99 subscription to PC Game Pass, right? I don't have an Xbox, so I just have PC Game Pass, which is a weird tier to be in when you get PC Game Pass only, because you're basically getting the essentials tier, and then you're getting the premium tier, and then but it costs a little bit extra even though it's just PC, right? And then I should also mention, and I apologize if Seb just mentioned that there's a lot of information being said here, but all tiers except PC now include bigger libraries, PC title. I mean, they did add some games like Hogwarts Legacy and stuff like that, but generally speaking, I don't believe PC Game Pass got any big additional benefits or boons that they didn't have before. So I literally just have to pay another $5 for nothing. So yeah, I don't think $30 is worth it. I was already not going to buy Ultimate because I got what I wanted out of PC Game Pass, but I'm definitely now never going to touch it, like ever. That's a ridiculous amount of money.
Yeah, I already don't pay for Game Pass. I prefer to own my games. I prefer to buy them on Steam or somewhere else. And I get the appeal to Game Pass. Of course, it saves you a lot of money down the road because, day one releases, you don't have to shell out $70 for it. It's just easier to pay a one price subscription. Personally, for me, I like to replay games. I like to have a library of games. So, and I know technically I don't own the games on Steam, but it's very unlikely that Steam or that Valve is ever going to go out of business and all my games are going to go away, or they're going to revoke my license or whatever. Like, it's just not going to happen. It's impossible. It's pretty much impossible. It's like, if it does happen, it's not going to happen in my lifetime, I don't think. But it is true that we don't technically own our games digitally anymore. The only way to really own a game is to own it physically, which is all but dead on PC, unfortunately.
And even then, they can
Or
always
GOG.
just stop updating patches and stuff like that, and
Yeah.
disable access to patches, and then your game pretty much can't run, or at least runs, but runs suboptimally, right? Doesn't
Yeah.
run the way that the devs intend.
Yeah. You can also buy games on GOG, which is DRM free, so you do own that game. You actually do own the games.
Yes.
But
Yep. GOG's great for that.
but most people don't use that. They use Steam. Steam is
Yeah.
just the king of PC gaming. And yeah, I mean, that's the thing about Valve. They always stay winning because everybody else makes mistakes and shoots themselves in the foot. And once again, people are going to shift towards Steam more likely and get away from a subscription model like this because of the prices. I mean, the cancellations and all that, right? If PC gaming was already increasing in numbers, I imagine more people who the remaining people who use Game Pass are going to flock more back to Steam. So Valve pretty much wins here without even doing anything, for starters.
Yeah. Yeah. And I have said this before. I used to really defend Xbox Game Pass, or Game Pass in general, as one of the best deals in gaming, and just a great thing to have in general if you're a cheap bastard like me. Like, unlike Seb, I don't care about replaying games, and I don't usually go back to them unless they're like all-time favorites and I've got time on my hands and I want to speedrun it or something, right? Like I did that with Resident Evil 4 for a little bit this year, the remake. But for people like Seb, obviously Game Pass doesn't make as much sense. For people like me, I'm really cheap and I just prefer. I don't really care if I own my games or not because I don't usually go back to them anyway, and I don't care about having a collection either. So that kind of stuff just doesn't really matter to me, and that doesn't mean it's wrong for Seb or for anyone else. People can have their preferences. That's fine. Go spend your money how you want to. If you want to spend, hey, if you're out there and you want to spend $30 on Game Pass Ultimate and you have that money to spend and you use it like, every day, like, good for you. But I barely use Game Pass these days, and it's not because it's a bad service. It's just because a lot of the games I had on my library in Game Pass, I already had in Steam. And then the ones that are left are either really long games that I don't have the time for, games that haven't come out yet, like Outer Worlds 2, Ninja Gaiden 4, or games that I just haven't gotten around to playing quite yet because I'm busy with Ghost of Yotei and Hades 2, right? So it's just a very busy time. I mean, I'm playing my fucking PS5 and I'm not even playing my Game Pass. I still like Game Pass, but it's harder and harder to justify 3 price increases over 3 years. It is hard to justify that it is the best deal in gaming anymore. Honestly, there might be a better argument that PS Plus is a better deal at this point. I don't know all the particulars about PS
It
Plus
ha-
and all the benefits and stuff,
it
but
has more games. You don't get day one games,
yeah,
but you have more access to more games. Now it's
right,
competitive with the Game Pass. But Game
right.
Pass was the clear winner.
So
Now it's
yeah,
pretty tied.
yes. So this could be, if Sony doesn't trip over itself in the process, this could be a great moment for Sony to do something cool with their PS Plus subscription model. But regardless, for me personally, I am a Game Pass subscriber. I already talked about it. I'm a PC gamer, and so I do have PC Game Pass, and it's now charging me $16. I think that when it gets to 20, and I say when, not if, because if this keeps up, it's going to hit 20, right? If this hits 20, I'm going to start reconsidering my subscription. I still think at $16, I am getting my money's worth, but it is that margin of value per dollar that I'm giving into it is getting slimmer and slimmer. Like I'm not using Game Pass as much as I used to. There's only like a handful of games on there that I even want to play. And like I recently played Quake, which was really fun. I played Shady Part of Me. I think I gave Gears of War a shot. Actually, I think I did that. Yeah, I did that on PC. But so I still play it from time to time, but overwhelmingly I play Steam way more. And I'm even playing my PlayStation now, which I had to literally get a tissue and like get rid of the dust because that's how long it's been since I've even touched it. So yeah, I think this is a really terrible move, and it just shows from what you said earlier, Sep, that the cancellation pages were crashing. Like that's how bad it was. So I think the cons overwhelm the pros on this point.
Yeah.
Though I will admit that I'm sure there are some Fortnite people out there and some people who also like Ubisoft, who are really over the moon about this. But I can't imagine they're the majority. I can't imagine those two, three. I can't imagine the Venn diagram is overlapping at a lot of points, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But yeah, did you want to get into the pros and cons, or have we already kind of started?
I think basically I've already started, but the first thing that's bad is one of the first things that's bad is that like the optics is bad in the sense that like, they said that Game Pass was $5 billion profitable last year, right? They said that,
Right.
and but is it like? 'Cause I question how they make. I've always questioned this with Game Pass. How do they make money when they're paying for like so many games, which license.
Right.
I know Microsoft is the richest company in the world, but that doesn't mean the Xbox division is, and they only get so much money, and paying for all these AAA games, indie games I can understand not as expensive, but like you're paying for all these AAA games, how are you making your money back? And this feels like we're not making as much money as we hoped, so we're gonna nickel and dime our remaining subscribers because that's what companies do when they're like not making as much money as they hope. They start getting as much money as they can from the remaining people. And I always questioned how PC Game Pass breaks into the PC market because Steam has such a grasp on it. And that was another question of like, where does your market grow? If Xbox is not growing on consoles, especially now when it's like a $600+ system, and everybody prefers Steam on PC, where do you grow your numbers? Like, how do you possibly grow? Right? Like, I never understood like how do you get
Yeah.
more numbers? And I've you really don't see a company like shoot themselves in the foot this much. I mean, they've really just fell apart. They had such a good feeling, right? It was like what 2022, 23, like they were feeling themselves. Game Pass was like doing really well. They had good optics, and people were like PlayStation was dealing with issues, and it's just been it's been one bad thing after another. It's like, first of all, they increased the price of their console, as I said, They made the Rogue Ally, the Xbox Rogue Ally X is now $1,000, right? And then,
Ugh.
and the games are going to be $80. I mean, to their credit, they did change Outer Worlds 2 from being $80 to $70, so that was good. But they're just nickel and diming everybody now, and like they've killed their platform on consoles. There's no exclusives anymore. And I don't really care about that because, I play on PC, and also I don't care about fanboy wars, but they did kill their exclusivity. They gave people zero reason to get a Xbox console. They increased the prices of it. I mean, this is like, it's just, I don't know, it's just shooting yourself in the foot. And this is like the only thing they had left, right? I mean, if the Xbox brand is pretty
Yeah.
much dead as we know it, I'm not saying it's dead, but it's dead as we know it. Which means like competing with PlayStation, being like their rival, and just becoming a third party company that releases games on every platform and has a subscription service and all that. This is the only thing they had left, and they just killed it. I mean, it's still around. I'm not saying it's dead, but I'm saying they just did some massive damage to it, and I don't
Right.
know. The optics is horrible, and I don't know where to go from here for them. Um, I know everything's expensive in the game. Everything's going up now because of tariffs and greedy companies and all that. But like in this economy, and you're charging people $30 a month, it's bad. Like
Yeah.
that's really bad. And this is I fully get why people are very anti Microsoft right now, and it's horrible. And, I mean, I'll still buy their games because it doesn't really affect me. I buy their games full price or on sale on key websites and stuff like that. But I feel bad for subscribers. I feel bad for people who like Game Pass. I feel bad because it really was a good deal. I mean, I would have said that. I never was. I never subscribed to Game Pass really, but I was never like, oh, it sucks. It's horrible for the industry. I was fine with it. Like I think it's good I think it's good for people. Um, I don't like an all subscription service like Future. I don't want I didn't want like a Netflix of gaming everywhere. Like I was scared of that, but that didn't happen because a lot of companies didn't see the profit in it. So I'm glad that didn't happen. But yeah, it's a shitty situation overall. I was gonna say something else, and now I'm forgetting what I was gonna say. But yeah, I I don't know where they go from here because it's pretty
Yeah.
bad.
I don't either. I really don't think that these benefits are that big of a deal. Like Fortnite Crew feels really niche. Ubisoft Classics, you can get a lot of those on Steam for cheap, unless I'm mistaken, Seb. I feel like you can get a lot of those games for cheap.
Oh
And I
yes,
even had to look through the catalog, and it's like it didn't look that impressive to me. Like a lot of those games are either games a lot of people our age either grew up playing. I know that's why they're called classics. But like maybe it's for the younger generation. But even
no.
then, it's like, are people really going to shell out for Ultimate just to like, I don't know, get into the nostalgia when they can just pay like $5 for Assassin's Creed Black Flag on Steam as an example?
No, those
I
games are
just
like
don't think the math works.
yeah, those games are like $5 or less on sales,
Yeah,
and then like they're on PS Plus for cheaper. You get all the Ubisoft
right.
classics on PS Plus for
Yeah.
cheaper. So
So it just doesn't make any sense. And then the Fortnite Crew, like I said, is very kind of, it feels niche to me. I know it's one of the biggest games in the world, but if you're really into like single player games and you're really into, you're just not into multiplayer games, like what benefit would that do? Even if it's not like, oh, I hate Fortnite, it's like I'm not into multiplayer games like for me or for Seb for the most part. It's like that does nothing for me. And then the last thing I want to comment on too is the cloud stuff is nice. I mean, I'm glad more people get to do that, and then they revamped the reward system. I saw some people complaining, but maybe it is better for people. I don't really know one way or the other because I've never really used them. But the last thing I wanted to note too is the day one games. Right, that's a huge benefit. That's one of the biggest benefit. And it banks on Xbox consistently delivering quality time after time after time to justify $30 or premiums cost, right, $15. Because I believe premium also gets day one. I could be wrong, but it banks on Xbox being super consistent and you always getting a game that you want at least a few times a year, right? I just think that's a big gamble to take.
Mhm.
PC Game Pass, you do get day one games, and I'm getting that for like $16. So again, that's not a bad cost for me. And there are like a dozen or so games on Game Pass that I want to play that I can't find on that I don't already have on Steam,
Yeah.
or don't want to buy on Steam, and I would rather just play them through Game Pass. So there, for me, there's still value.
Yeah.
But as I said earlier, that margin is getting slimmer and slimmer, and it's like
Yeah.
I just need like one or two more good pushes, and then I'm probably out of there.
Yeah,
So
they're still trying to get people to subscribe to PC Game Pass. That's why they've kept it under $20.
yeah,
I think it's the only reason why they're doing that. But it's not gonna last. I think it's gonna go up again at some point. I mean, we all know this was coming, right? The Game Pass increase. Like we've said this before. Also, the last thing I wanted to mention that I remembered what I was gonna say is this is the reason why I was against the ABK deal, and Dory was as well. And we were both openly against them acquiring Activision, right? Like
right,
nothing good has happened since they acquired Activision. It's not. It wasn't because of some fanboy war thing. I didn't like it because I don't. I think consolidation leads to bad things, and it leads to a lot of turnover. And then what happened when they purchased them? A lot of layoffs, a lot of game cancellations or delays, and question marks, and studio turnover, and it's been rough, right? Like price increases because they got to justify, like, oh, we own Call of Duty now, we have to justify this, and they own Blizzard. It, nothing is good. Nothing has really been that great since they purchased them. I mean, people were championing this, like people were like full on pretending to be lawyers and attacking, you know, all the government agencies, questioning them, and like it was such a big event. The courtroom with like Phil Spencer talking and stuff. People were really invested, and people were really championing this, and people really thought that Microsoft was going to be keep these games exclusive. Like people thought Call of Duty was going to be exclusive to Microsoft, like an Xbox console, right? And they just completely went the other way, right? They became like the next Sega. So it's been very wild, but I just don't support these giant purchases, $1 billion purchases, consolidation, and all that. That's why I was
right.
against it. So you have any like points on that or?
Um, I don't think so. I'm looking through our notes right now, making sure that we covered everything. I really think we've covered just about everything.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm with you. This is overwhelmingly a negative change for me, and I think for just about everybody. And it's last couple things I'll say actually is that I recommend a conversation from IGN on this. They got a few different guys. One does the Xbox podcast, one does the PlayStation, and there's a moderator. And pretty much everyone's like, "Yeah, this sucks," and yeah, it's worth checking out. I feel like they call it out for what it is, which is just greed, really. Because, like you said, if it really is true, and obviously this is taking them at their value, at their word, right? Valuing their word. If it really is true that they've made all these millions and millions of dollars from Game Pass, then why are they increasing the price? They clearly wouldn't need to do that. I'm not saying that business is business, right? They're gonna do scummy things like that. So
Yeah.
I'm not saying, oh well, my Xbox would never, right? Because no, they fucking would. But economically it doesn't make any sense, right? It's like just to get all like wrestling nerd for a second, it's like when WWE like releases and cuts a bunch of wrestlers after recording record profits, right? And it's like, well, why are you cutting people for budgetary reasons when you just recorded record profits? Like, it doesn't make any fucking sense. So it's very similar here, where it's like, well, if Game Pass is so successful, why are you raising the price? It doesn't make any sense. Now they say they're adapting to market conditions, but they're just making market conditions worse. Everyone's adapting to market conditions by making those conditions worse for people who don't have money. So anyway, it sucks, and we should probably move on. We've talked enough about it.
All right. So the next topic is Shinobi Art of Vengeance. So we're gonna start our spotlighting of games that we played last month and this month. And Shinobi Art of Vengeance is a really good game. I recommend it for anyone who likes platformer slash Metroidvanias. First of all, the combat is very solid and it's very satisfying. There's nice combos that are fast. There's ninja moves. There's kunai. There's magic that all land very nicely. The combat feels very satisfying. One of the best parts of this game is the gorgeous visuals that are hand drawn, and they give it a lot of character. It really stands out. I think they're very slick and they look really nice. The combat and the visuals are the two strongest points of this game. I think this game looks nice and it plays nice, and that's why I would recommend it. The traversal is fun. You can unlock new abilities over time, like the grapple hooks, dashing, and etc. And when you go back to old areas, it feels rewarding. And the levels are often packed with secrets and optional challenges, and so it gives you reasons to explore beyond just hacking through enemies. It means a Metroidvania, so the whole point of the game is to explore. I think the difficulty is tough, but it's fair. I think it's not. I don't think it's like. I don't think it's ridiculous or anything like that. I don't think it's unfair. I think it's quite fair. The enemies hit hard, but it rewards learning the patterns and getting good at the game. So I think it's like maybe like normal difficulty for me. I think the boss fights really shine. I think they're memorable and they feel like milestones rather than just obstacles. So in terms of the pros overall, I would say this is a good to great Metroidvania that looks very nice, hand drawn, very stylish, and it plays really nice. It's fun to explore. If you like Metroidvania games, this is one of the best games of the year to play. Especially if you finish Silk Song and you want another, you're itching for another Metroidvania that plays similar to it. This is your game. Any questions about the pros?
I was going to ask you about like in terms of the platforming in Metroidvania, like how tough it is, but I think you're going to get into that in the cons.
Yeah.
So maybe that's jumping the gun a little bit. But yeah, I don't really have any major questions.
Okay. Some of the cons. The platforming isn't always precise. There's some blind jumps, awkward hitboxes, and traps that can feel cheap. I think the level design can be repetitive at times. Some of the layouts feel it's too similar. And then there's backtracking, which can really drag the pacing. I think this is one of the issues with Metroidvanias in general, where there's too much backtracking, and then the areas all look the same, and it just feels like you're going nowhere. You spend like 2 hours going nowhere. Um, I felt I had this issue with Silk Song too, as you remember. So I think it's just an
Right.
issue with the genre. I had this issue with Metroid Dread, which was my game of the year in 2021, as well. And yeah, they gotta figure out like how to do backtracking better in Metroidvanias. The narrative tone is inconsistent. There's some serious moments and goofy bits that don't always land. Overall, the checkpoints and the fast travel could be stingier. Some areas feel like punishment when you mess up. Optional paths are locked behind abilities you unlock later, which means early parts feel more limited. Some players might want more innovation, but this game doesn't try to innovate at all. It's pure Metroidvania, follows the formula instead of reinventing the wheel. So just be mindful of that. This game doesn't do anything new. It's a typical Metroidvania that looks very pretty and plays nicely, but just be mindful it doesn't reinvent the wheel. All right, any questions about the cons?
Um, Not really. I feel like it's a game both having platforming and Metroidvania. I mean, I could maybe deal with one or the other depending on, how tough it is or how tricky it is. Did you find yourself getting lost often?
Not really. I feel like this
Okay.
game wasn't it's not as big as like Silk Song or something like that. I feel like it was. There was times where like areas would look too similar and I got a little lost, but nothing too bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's a game that's not for me, but I definitely respect like,
Yeah.
the passion of the people behind it. And I've seen some, I remember seeing some trailers for it, and it looked really cool. It's just not my, I say this all the time, but not my genre.
Yeah. So I would give it an 8 out of 10. I think it's a must play game if you like Metroidvanias. Um, it's not in my top 10, but it could be my honorable mentions. All right, let's move on to Hades 2, which Dory you've been playing a lot of hours in. So start with the
Yep.
pros, please.
Sure. So I have currently Let's see here. 57.4 hours, and out of early access, I had about 35 hours. So I put an additional 20 hours in the last week, which is a lot for me in between school and work and, my personal life. So I've definitely been putting a lot of time into it. I'll start with the pros. I'll give everyone a heads up. I know this is not going to shock anybody who's been a longtime listener of Seb and I, yap about video games. I have a lot of positive things. I have very few negative things. Honestly, I even kind of like took pity on a couple things here in the cons. Like I was like, well, maybe you could say this or that, but like even most of the cons aren't cons to me, but they could be to other people. All right. So first off, it's Hades 2, right? It's not some big departure. It's still a roguelite. It's still, you get your random boons per run. You get an assortment of rooms and gods to talk to. You're still trying to kill a god. This time it's Kronos. That's not a spoiler. It's literally in the marketing, and she says death to Kronos, right? So not a spoiler. But yeah, it's the same old thing that it was last time. But when the same old thing last time was Game of the Year award winning, I don't think that's such a bad idea. I think, to make a comparison, it's like when people complain about The Force Awakens because it's too much like A New Hope. And I'm like, well, A New Hope is like one of my favorite movies of all time. So I don't really mind if another movie is going to like try to ape at what it does, right? I'm not saying they're on the same level, but it's similar right here, right? I think Hades 2 overall is as good, if not better, than the original, which is, amazing because that came out 5 years ago, and we've definitely had some games that have tried to be like Hades. I don't mean that derogatorily. I just mean like they're obviously very inspired by Hades, as they should be. It's a terrific game. And we've had a lot of, kind of imitators in the years past. So the fact that Hades 2 can still feel so good just really proves what a great studio Supergiant is. The graphical engine hasn't really received much of an update, but it still looks detailed, bright, fun. All the character portraits look beautiful. There's some redesigns. I love Ares' redesign, which is really good. Dionysus has a really good redesign as well. But yeah, the graphics look amazing. Everything looks so detailed. All the sprites and images and obviously there's not any character animation. There's no lip flapping or anything like that, right? It's all text and people talking. But that's fine when the writing is so good and the voice acting is so good. I don't mind. Obviously, the main thing here is the gameplay, right? The gameplay is incredible. Some of my favorites include Lim and Oros, which are basically your assassin kind of weapons. They're my favorites. They're fast, they're lethal, and they're the ones I really prefer overwhelmingly, according to Hades 2's own statistics. There's actually a heavy axe. I don't always use heavy weapons, but when I do. But yeah, I really liked the heavy axe. I think it's called the Moonstone axe or something. And that one's really good too. That one's really fun. You have to be really careful, of course, because it takes some time to do an attack. But when you do hit with the attack, which it's hard not to because it's a big fucking axe, you usually do massive damage. Feels super satisfying. Of course, just like in Hades 1, there's all sorts of different forms. And so, for example, with the Moonstone axe, some of those forms make your attacks go a little faster, right? So instead of being a huge heavy axe, you get, a different kind of weapon that goes much faster. Trying to be vague so I don't spoil too much. But all this should be familiar to anybody who's really into Hades. And then there's a third weapon that I really love. I won't name it, but it has close and long range capabilities. So I really enjoy that too. The musical score, I mean, come on. This is Hades. This is Supergiant. Supergiant has never fucking missed with the sound. I don't think I've played Bastion, I played Hades, I played I think it's Pyre. It could have been the other one. Transistor. I played Transistor. They have never missed with like three things: the soundtrack, the writing, and like this, the soundtrack, the writing, and the voice acting and stuff like that, right? Usually the aesthetic direction in general is very, very good. And the same is here. I love Scylla and the Sirens, which is just a trio of sirens who lure sailors to their doom and are always very upset that Melanui is interrupting them. That's another thing too. Melanui, the sister of Zagreus, is now the main protagonist, so that's really cool. Female protagonist, always great. Um, and then yeah, they have the Skilla and the Sirens have the song called "Claw Out Your Eyes and Drown You to Death." So really great song. Go check it out. And just like in the first game, you can hire a musician to play the songs whenever you want. They are instrumental versions, not the versions that have vocals in them, but still very fun. And you can randomize them as well. So very cool. In this game, in Hades 2, as opposed to Hades 1, you don't just have to go into the underworld. You can also go above to Mount Olympus. Again, not a spoiler. This is in the trailers and stuff like that. So that, options, Mount Olympus is a lot tougher in some ways than the underworld. Although you can make the underworld tougher if you take certain challenges. But yeah, Mount Olympus is very cool. It's under siege, so maybe, not a cool place to be, but it's a cool place to play. And I love both locations. I think they both have their pros and cons in terms of like the runs that you're going to do. Some of the bosses, especially late game on Olympus, are really tough. So that'll send you back to start more than a few times. But it gives you a lot more options. It gives you more options in terms of how you want to play. There are some new characters and fun dialogue. Because you're Malinui and you grew up with a different kind of mother figure. You have a different environment and different friends than Zagreus did, and different acquaintances. There's of course Nemesis. You meet Odysseus, and there's some familiar faces too. But I thought they were all done very well. There's always, excellent writing mixed with fun dialogue. And yeah, it gives you piecemeal information, little bits at a time, little crumbs. But I still feel like that Hades formula for the first game still works. They give you these little bits of information here or there, but it just makes you want to go forward, even though it's maybe not as much information as you want, right? That pushes you forward. The rewards for doing extra challenges feel appropriate, and there are extras like brewing incantations. You can fish. You could take a communal bath with somebody you want to romance or someone you're just friends with. You can do decorating. All of that stuff feels really worth your time and worth investing in. And yeah, and then last couple things. The level of detail on how much characters will comment on your choices, whether that's weapons, boons, the challenges you take. I just find it very impressive. Bosses, frequently say something about what you're doing or how you're doing it. And skill is often very funny in that in particular. So just a lot of immersion in this game in terms of like how much you feel invested in the story because the story invests in your choices. The boss fights feel big and largely very fair. There's still moments or fights that I don't like as much as others, but at this point, about 60 hours in, I pretty much know how to beat most of the bosses. There's one boss in particular that I won't name, but they have this attack where you have to memorize where their attacks are coming from, and like I still hate that because if you get hit by even one of those attacks, it usually uses up a Death Defiance, if not kills you outright, right? So, and last but not least, and probably the most important part about the cons, game good. I just wanted an even 10, honestly. But yeah, Seb, anything you wanted to add? I know you've only put maybe 12, 13 hours in, but if there's anything you want to add.
No, I think you nailed everything, but yeah, it's like the same game, but like just better, of course. There's just way more additions. It looks it looks better. I mean, it's a newer game. It plays fantastic. It's gonna be in my top 5 games of the year, I'm sure. Hades was like my second favorite game of that year. I feel like, or yeah, I played that. That's right. And I played it after the fact, so like it wasn't in my top 5 until like a couple years later, I guess. But either way, it's a fantastic game. It's one of the few games deserving of a 10 out of 10.
Yep.
Honestly, um, it's near perfect. I mean, don't expect like that. They don't expect them to reinvent the wheel. I mean, there's no reason to. It's a sequel, right? Um,
Right.
but it doesn't have to. I mean, it shines in everything you want in a game. Replayability, visuals, gameplay. Even that voice acting is great, and the characters are all likable. Like, story is good. Like it has everything, and it does it pretty much flawlessly. Um, the cons. very minor, right? Like they're
Yes,
nitpicks, really. So
they're incredible nitpicks.
if
I've oh, go ahead. What were you gonna say?
I said if a game has nitpicks in the cons, then it's pretty much 10 out of 10. I
Yeah,
mean,
this game pretty much is a 10. I also want to say, since we're talking about games of the year, I would feel bad personally. I mean, we haven't established a rule about this, and it's not like Seb saying, "Oh, I can't do this." But I personally would feel bad if I put Hades 2 in my top 10 again. Now that it's already come out, I already put 35 hours into it. I knew it was a fantastic game. It was already in my top 5 last year. So just to make space for new games, I'm probably not going to put it on my list. I will, of course, make it an honorable mention. I will praise the hell out of it like I have been here. But yes, there are cons. They are very minor. The biggest one is that I had a few crashes. And now ever since had an update, I haven't had any crashes. So maybe that was it. But it kept saying that something was wrong with the engine or something. I had one crash in particular. I was trying to figure out, I pressed Shift and Tab, which when you're in Steam, brings up the game time, right? How much game, and I had just beaten Chronos for the first time. And then the game crashed. I was like distraught. And so I had to I kind of pulled a Seb on Returnal. I went fucking Ultra Instinct and I went and I beat him again. For the first time, technically. It was very funny actually, because he is the god of time.
yeah.
And my game froze and crashed, so there was a kind of thematic irony. I wasn't appreciating it at the time, but looking back, I can kind of appreciate it. That's very funny. Oh, also, if you try pausing when you're fighting Chronos, it's very funny. But in game. But yeah, I had a few crashes. They were unfortunate. I did have a time also where I just completely blew it against Chronos, and I was like, I'm just gonna quit out, and it should bring me to the. I didn't, I had just gotten a save, so I was like, I'll just quit out and I'll try again. It was cheap, obviously, but I was like, at that point, I kind of wanted to move the plot along a little bit, because you need certain resources from Chronos to actually, because he's a god, he can't really die. And then it just wiped my whole run, so I had to do the whole run again. But that time I actually beat Chronos, so whatever. So a few crashes, not great, but I also haven't had. That's 3 crashes in I don't know 20 hours, right? Which is not great, but it's not terrible. And 3 crashes in 60 hours is whatever, right? They were all pretty minor, and mostly they were whenever I would press a button that would access my. It's probably a full screen issue. Whenever I would press a button to screenshot, not screenshot, but I think I pressed the wrong button to screenshot and it made my game crash. And then also checking the time on Steam. So they're mostly not necessarily Hades crashing as much as it is, I think, my computer interacting badly with Hades 2 being in full screen. Anyway, that's my biggest criticism, but like I said, I've been playing for another 5-10 hours this week, and I haven't had any crashes. So I think they fixed it with the updates. I will say romance options feel a little limited. It's kind of tough to romance anyone when you're related to just about everybody in the game. I think Artemis is really cute, but they are basically related to each other more or less. So I'm in the game, I'm going for the heterosexual option, which always feels boring to me. But at least it's very obvious to me, and I won't say who, but it's very obvious to me in canon that Malinoi has feelings for this character. So I don't feel like I'm doing anything weird there. And then some folks, this is one of the things I was talking about where I was it doesn't bother me, but it might bother other people. Some gods don't have as big of a role as they did last time. The whole plot is that your family have been kidnapped. So you're not exactly going to be seeing Zacharias every time, and you're not exactly going to be seeing, Hades, right? And obviously those are the 2 big characters of the last game. And obviously there are other gods like Dionysus who you don't see a lot. And I think Ares only comes in later. So some gods, some people who really love those particular characters might be well, that's a bummer, right? It doesn't really bother me, but I don't know. I'm just throwing a bone to cons because honestly, if I didn't, this fucking section would be empty. And then the last con, which again is another kind of pity con, is me saying is me saying that yeah, it's a lot like the first Hades, like Seb already said, and maybe for some people that could be disappointing, but That's like getting an amazing ice cream and then getting a second one and then being like, oh, well, it's just the same amazing ice cream I just had 5 minutes ago. Like, yeah, obviously it's not going to blow your mind as much, but it's like, it's still the same amazing ice cream, right? So yeah, it's a fantastic game. I wouldn't personally give it a 10 out of 10, just because, I think it just doesn't hit as hard just inherently. But I mean, it's a fantastic game. Don't get me wrong. I think it's an incredible game. And if I did include it in my top 10, it'd probably be in my top three, I want to say. Um, I don't remember if I gave anything a 5 out of 5 this year. I don't think I have. But I'm going to check right now, actually, install a little bit. But yeah, it's an excellent game and absolutely worth playing. If you liked Hades, obviously you should play Hades too. That kind of goes without saying. Yeah, I mean, I'm not. It's better than Split Fiction. I'm not sure. I wouldn't say it's better than Expedition 33 for me. I'd say they're very close. They're both incredible games, so it's kind of like tied between the two. But like I said, I'm gonna be all sneaky and stuff, and I'm not gonna put it in my top 10 because I did that last year, and I want other games that are new and weren't in early access highlighted. But yeah, Seb, any comments, questions about the cons, such that
No,
they are?
no. I mean, it's what I expected. I mean, basically the only big con is just that it's not that different, but it's really not a con. I mean,
Yeah.
it's improving on an already awesome formula. And not only that, but it's a perfect Steam Deck game or perfect PC handheld game. It's
Yes.
it's a perfect pick up and
Man,
play game.
if only I had a Steam Deck, Seb. If only I had a Steam Deck.
Yeah. It's a perfect pick it up, like just pick it up and play. Like it's a perfect game like when you're at the
Yes.
doctor's office or
You can
something.
easily get a run done in like 20 minutes or 30 minutes, if you're still starting out. Like,
Yeah.
I completely agree. It's a perfect game to play on the go. You can just do one run and then, get back to whatever else you were doing. Like, you could play it on your lunch if you get a 30-minute lunch. Just do one run, and then, that'll take up pretty much your whole lunch. So yeah, it's great for that. It's just great in general. Honestly, I've said this. I said this last podcast. Supergiant is one of my favorite developers. I don't think Bastion and Transistor are like amazing games, but I liked them a lot, and I respected the team that put them together. And I always thought that Bastion was really cool and really fun. It had some problems that I think they've since ironed out. I mean, there's a reason why this is their first ever sequel, right? Hades was so, so, so successful for them and made absolute gangbusters for them. And it's just like such a big success, such a big indie success. It won a lot of GOTY awards. It won a lot of awards, period. Um, it's, it's put a lot of people on the map and things on the map that weren't before. Obviously, it made the roguelite genre explode even more than it already was because Dead Cells and I'm struggling to name any other roguelites, but uh, uh, Children of I can't remember what the heck that one's called. But yeah, shows my roguelite knowledge. But this is my exception to roguelites. I don't generally play roguelites, and I play Hades. And even then, sometimes I get a little frustrated that I have to start all the way back at the beginning. And I love Hades a lot, but sometimes I'm like, God damn it! Like, I just all that progress. But of course, you have permanent buffs that you get, and you get, the way that Hades does this, and it did it in the first game too, is of course you get a lot of new dialogue every time you die, and you learn from it, and you come back, and you're stronger, yada yada. It's the same roguelike thing, but I love the way that they do it. And
Yeah.
of course, I love it when video games like make a logic about it. Like Melinoi is a god. Like, of course she's not going to die, right? So of course she's just going to come right back. Maybe her physical body is gone, but her, I don't know, immortal soul is not going to die, right? It's like
Yeah.
ancient Greece. So anyway, we've been talking about this for 20 minutes, so we should probably move on and talk about Silent Hill.
Yeah, I just want to close with the fact that you could argue that Supergiant at this point is the best indie developer in the world. They make
Yeah.
the best indie games. I can't think of anyone better than them right now in the indie sphere. Not only that, but like it's mostly like a group of friends. There's no like I don't think they work any overtime and stuff like that. Like I don't think there's any. You don't ever hear about like layoffs or nothing with them. Like it feels like people, just
Yeah.
a group of passionate people making quality games, and their games sell for indie games as well. So
Yep.
highly rated, very successful. I mean, they're just killing it right now. And Hades 2 is just another line of awesome games from them. And this is the year. This is the year of indie games carrying the industry. I mean, I could I could see Expedition 33, Silk Song, and Hades 2 being all my top five, and also could be three in the three Game of the Year nominees in the Game Awards. So it's been the industry right now is in a weird place, a very expensive place, and it's nice to see
Yes.
$20 indies. This game was like $30. I want to say
Yeah,
20.
this one's $30, but absolutely, by the way, absolutely worth $30.
This
You
game,
will get so many hours and good hours out of it. So
yeah, this
absolutely worth $30.
yeah, this game is probably worth full price to be honest with you, but not to give them any
It
ideas.
honestly probably is. I would pay at least $50 for this game. The fact that they're selling it for less is wild.
Absolutely. All right, let's move on now to our final topic of the night in the main event, which is Silent Hill F. That's our thumbnail. Uh, I completed it. I actually beat it twice because I got the UFO ending as well. Dory, you only played 90 minutes of it, but I feel like that's enough to give a general opinion of it.
Yes.
So let's start with the pros, of course. The pros of this game are the atmosphere. I mean, that's the number one pro of this game. The atmosphere in this game is incredible. I mean, the fog, the visuals, the monster design is incredible. Uh, there's always a creeping dread everywhere you go. Like the atmosphere in this game is insanely good. It does most of the heavy lifting in this game. To be honest with you, there's really not that many jump scares. There's no like gotcha moments really. It's just the atmosphere is so creepy that like you kind of feel on edge, and that's how a Silent Hill game is always the best Silent Hill games always accomplish, right? Like that's how Silent Hill 1, 2, and 3 and 4 are, where it's not like it doesn't go out of your way to like jump scare or like something jumps to the window or something. It's always subtle, like a noise. You're not sure what it is. Something came in the room and you're not sure. Something came in the house. And you're not sure what it is. You're always like questioning where you're going. That's an accomplishment for a horror game. Like that's where Silent Hill shines. It's psychological horror. So right off the bat, the atmosphere in this game is absolutely incredible. The story in this game is very good. There's a lot of metaphors about the whole story game is about feminism and arranged marriage, and there's a metaphor with a evil demon fox and trying to marry her and her trying to fight for her freedom, her identity. Like it is really good story about like how women in the 1960s Japan, rural Japan, had no say over their marriage, over their body, and like right off the bat shows out like with her alcoholic dad, her mom getting in that same pattern where mom was forced to marry the dad. Then she has like a best friend, I think it was, and she was like beautiful and she's kind of jealous of her, but she doesn't want to be like that girl. And the whole game was about her like trying to find her identity of being independent. And the whole metaphor of her like being forced into a marriage with a demon fox. But yeah, I know it's a little bit of a spoiler, but like I didn't go into details about it. But that's really what the gist of it, the game story. But the story was incredible, for the most part. I thought it was told very well. I thought it was storylines where it really shined. It was right up there. Not as good as Silent Hill 2, but definitely among the best in the Silent Hill franchise, I think, story-wise. Because I thought there's a lot of layers to it that I really liked. A lot of nice metaphors. I like the themes in the game. So the story is where it shines. The sound design, the music, and the presentation are very strong. The voices are good. There's nice ambient noise. And there's very unsettling visuals, as I talked about earlier with the atmosphere. The monster design looks really nice. Some of the monsters genuinely look creepy. It does a great job with the sound design. This game is incredible with headphones. The music is really nice. The presentation is very strong. It's a AAA game. Feels like it. Plays like it. It's a AAA game. The exploration is not as good as other Silent Hill games. A lot of the same kind of environments in terms of like, I feel like you get stuck in either a town that's foggy, or you're in like this spirit world with pillars and stuff, and they look similar to each other. So it's not the greatest exploration, but it's pretty good. And the puzzles are okay. They're pretty good. They're not the best puzzles in the series, but they're not like overly complicated either. So I thought they were fine. It was a fine balance. So I thought that overall was pretty good, just not as good as other games. And there's a lot. Obviously, it's Silent Hill, so there's multiple endings. The first ending you get is not the real ending, so you do have to replay the game to get the real ending. There's a good ending. There's a bad ending. There is a true ending. There's a UFO ending, and so on and so forth. So you got this game has a lot of nice replayability, and it has good replay value with changed enemy placements, clues, and story tweaks. So this game has a lot of replay value. I mean, you play this, buy this game full price. You should get your money's worth. Silent Hill game. You know what to expect at this point. Play it multiple times, get different endings, and I think the true ending, is satisfying, and it wraps the story up nicely overall. So the pros were overall. This game was it was pretty. It was good to great, I would say. Like it's an 8 out of 10 for me. I'll tell you why I'll tell you my cons, but there's times where this game was in the 7 territory where it was like, some issues with this game for sure, which I'll talk about. And then there's other times where this game was like, wow, this game is great. So it was kind of a roller coaster with that. So it's kind of like a Starfield 8, as Dory would say.
Yeah.
But I think it's still an 8 because I'm a big enough horror fan, and I enjoyed the story and the atmosphere enough to keep it at 8. So I
Yeah.
would say it's an 8. So that's my
Yeah.
pros.
I want to say I pretty much agree with most of those pros. Obviously, I can't speak to New Game Plus, and I can't speak too much to exploration and puzzles. But I love the atmosphere. I mean, just because I put the game down doesn't mean I had nothing. I have nothing positive to say about it. I completely agree. The atmosphere is awesome. The story did seem ambitious. I didn't get to see enough of it to be overly impressed with it. I feel like the whole drunk dad trope of being abusive stuff, I don't know, just for me, just kind of fell flat. I feel like I've seen that story a million times. I'm not saying it doesn't happen or it's not important to tell that story, but just for me, it was like I was like my first thought was like, this again. Like, I feel like I've seen it before, but obviously it does happen. It is important to talk about, and especially 60s and stuff like that.
Yeah,
But yeah, I mean, for what I experienced,
yeah.
absolutely, atmosphere was really top notch. The music seemed great. The ambiance seemed great. I mean, the graphics looked really good. I did have to do some tinkering with my laptop to get like stable performance, but overall, it ran pretty decently for the most part.
Yeah, I want to
For
add to
me.
that. I want to add to that because on my desktop I had no issues. Just ultra settings, right? Jumped right in, didn't have to mess with anything. My laptop, which is a 4060, which is not like it's not the greatest PC ever, but it's should be good enough to play. I had to sit there and tweak with the graphics for like 20 minutes on my laptop for some reason. It was a pain in the ass. Your laptop's
Yeah,
similar specs to mine, I think. So
right.
it was a pain in the ass on the laptop.
Yeah, I had to keep finagling with it. And that was annoying. Wasn't the big reason I stopped playing, but it was definitely it
Yeah,
didn't help.
yeah. And anything else?
Um, no, not really. I agree with all your pros, and I don't honestly have too much more to say than that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean I appreciate how it used Japanese lore and folklore especially and integrated it, excuse me, into the plot.
Hmm.
But again, I didn't get super far enough into it to
Yeah.
really appreciate it one way or another.
The story is a bit confusing in the beginning. It doesn't really start making sense till later in the game, and because
Yeah.
you're not sure who the fox guy really is, and there's a big mystery to it.
I thought it was her friend, but I quit soon after I met him
It,
because of
it
this really annoying
well,
puzzle.
it is her friend
Yeah,
technically, but he's
yeah,
possessed by an evil demon fox.
of
Um,
course, classic, the Naruto effect.
yeah,
But yeah,
wait,
I actually I'll
yeah.
well we can get into cons and then I'll tell you where I quit. But yeah,
That fits the lore too, because obviously Japan's really into foxes. It's a big part of their lore, right? A big part of their
yeah,
beliefs. And this game is
yep, goes every day as well.
this game is very heavy on fox motif. Like you see a lot of fox statues and fox like
Yep.
things in this game. So it I really at the very least, I think you should watch cutscenes and get into the story at least, because it is pretty deep, and the themes in it and the message and all that are quite good. So I think it's worth that at least. All right, let's get into the cons. Biggest problem with this game, combat. It's very hit or miss. It's pretty clunky to really clunky at times. It's very stiff, especially when you're forced into action. Like it feels very stiff. Silent Hill 2 remake combat was okay. Wasn't the greatest. This feels even more stiff than that game. It gets frustrating at times because there's too many enemies at times. Like there's times where like you're, especially near the end of the game, you just get wave after wave after wave of enemies, and there's just too much fighting, and the combat is not good enough to withstand that many enemies, and combat really falls off a cliff later in the game.
Yeah,
At the end.
In Silent Hill 2, it always felt, at least to me, very well balanced in terms of like, you know, there's a few enemies in this hallway, and then there's maybe one or two over here, and then this hallway's clear. It was never like you have to fight wave after wave, which I had already heard about, and that was kind of making me nervous because it's like I know the combat's not great.
I think melee combat is really tricky to pull off in horror games, and I think there's a reason why Resident Evil never goes for melee combat outside like a quick time event or something, because it can be clunky to pull off if it's not like an action game like Devil May Cry or something. Because Silent Hill is so grounded in a realistic, like AAA, like hyper realistic setting, right? Like how you can't really do combos and tricks and all that, right? Because the character is just a 16-year-old girl, like, you know what I mean? So like,
yeah,
like Resident Evil plays so much better because like they're secret agents and all that, but like because gunplay just flows better in horror games than melee combat does, right? Because they tried that with Callisto Protocol, and the biggest problem with that game too was the clunky melee combat. Just something about melee combat, it's just really really hard to pull off. And I can't think of many games that are purely melee based that are AAA and like grounded that actually work, right? Like I can't think of that many games that actually pull it off. Like all the best AAA cinematic games I think of are all like have guns in it, right? I mean, like,
and I mean Silent Hill 2 did as well. That was one of the reasons why I liked it. I mean, like, I didn't really enjoy the crowbar stuff, but once I started being able to use guns, like the game just felt a lot better.
The game I'm thinking of is like Last of Us Part 2, because the melee combat was satisfying in that game. I thought with the machete or an axe or something, but because the gun combat was so good too. So like, if Konami can just figure out the combat, I feel like these games can really take the next step. You know what I mean? Like it's the only thing that's holding it back. I feel like is.
I mean, I know in context, right? It makes sense that she is not good at. This was the big reason I stopped playing, because I couldn't stand the combat. I understand that she's a teenage girl with absolutely no experience in fighting, let alone fighting monstrosities, right? So I'm not saying it doesn't make any sense. Like logically, it does make sense that she would be terrible at fighting. And of course, you know, James was not good at fighting either, right? Because he's not like Leon, even if he's like an adult man, right? So maybe he's more sure of himself and able to handle things a little better, but still, you know, he's not swinging for the fences with any kind of confidence. But either way, you know, even if a choice makes logical sense, that doesn't make it the most fun. And I would rather have her hits make more sense. I also just didn't like the stamina meter. I don't really like having that in the game, and I didn't feel like the sanity meter was doing much in terms of like being, at least in that first hour and a half, right? I can't speak to the later portions of the game, of course. But in that first hour and a half, I was like, I don't even understand why this is here. Like, it just doesn't feel like it adds much. Like, the only thing that happens when your sanity meter runs out is that you just start taking health damage instead of sanity. And I'm like, then why is it there? It just feels spurious. It doesn't feel necessary.
That's one of my issues with the game as well. I didn't like the weapon durability in this game. I felt like it was not needed. There's no other Silent Hill game has that I can think of. So it didn't really add anything. The meter you were talking about, the sanity meter, didn't add anything either. I don't know why it was there. It really didn't add anything to the game. The stamina meter really didn't need to be there either. Again, Silent Hill doesn't have that, so I don't know why they added that. any of those things. It didn't. It just made it worse. Honestly, all they really had to do was just copy Silent Hill 2 remakes gameplay, and it would have been a lot better. Um, the pacing in this game is uneven. There's times where like you have a really cool story section, and then you get transported. This happens a lot. Like it jumps back and forth between the real world and then like the Demon Fox land, the spirit world. And those sections have like puzzle heavy, and you're being chased, and you have to solve a puzzle while being chased by a monster, and it kind of just drags. Like it should be cooler
So that
than it is, but it's not.
Yeah, that is where I stopped. The first time that happened, where I was doing this really laborious I Spy Japanese character puzzle. I don't know if you know the one I'm talking about. It's very early on in the
Yeah, I know.
and this creature is chasing you, and I beat him like multiple times,
It
and it just kept
respawns.
coming back, and I'm like, this is not fun. This is not interesting. This is just annoying.
Yeah, you're
Like
not.
I'm looking at all these tiles. I even looked up a walkthrough, and it was like, oh well, the answer to the lock isn't just in this one area. You have to like go all the way over here and
Yeah,
all the way over here, and you have to go into this cave, and like the whole time this fucking thing is chasing you and
yeah,
fighting you. And it's like, I don't mind Mr. X stuff and Nemesis stuff to a certain extent, but like those guys, like you can't really hurt. You just have to run away from a
mhm.
void. This one you can hurt and kill, and it just keeps coming back, which
Yeah.
honestly I think is more annoying
Most of the
because it's more effort spent.
Yeah, the big enemies in this game don't die. They constantly respawn unless you kill it under a blue light. In that section, you had to solve 3 tiles and get the. It wasn't too bad when if you use a walkthrough, but yeah, those enemies are blind and you have to walk near them or they'll chase you. So you have to. They're like lickers. You have to walk around them and.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, it was just very uneven the pacing. There's technical issues. There's technical issues with the animation, the hit detection, there's performance stutters, frame rate drops, sometimes it's pop-ins. I didn't have a lot of issues really. My PC ran it really well, but I can see other people having issues. My big issue was the frame rate. I had it at 60, and it didn't let me go higher than that. And then it would jump, it would on like 57, 58, but it was not very that noticeable, so it wasn't a big deal. But I'm just saying it's subjective, and you might have issues with this game. I don't know why Konami refused to do higher than 60. I had this issue with Metal Gear Solid as well. All right, we already talked about the annoying durability system and the bars and all that. Um, the puzzles and the symbolic and like cultural references are like obscure and feel underexplained. Like in terms of like if you're not really familiar with Japanese culture, you're gonna miss all the subtlety, and like they could have done a better job making it a little more understandable to a Western audience, I suppose. Like it's very Japanese, which is fine. It's a Japanese game, right? But it's still, I think if I get the message because I know Japan very not very well. I know Japan well to understand things, but like I can see why people find the story confusing because it's very Japanese, and it's kind of like Black Myth Wukong, right? When they tell you a story about Wukong, and the story is very Chinese heavy, where like you have to know all these things to understand it, right? And this game is similar with that with Japanese culture, so just be mindful of that. The final con I have for this game is that there's just too much combat. Um, it gets away from being scary near the end, near like halfway point, and it just becomes constant fighting, 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 fighting. There's enemies everywhere. There's just too much combat in this game. Um, it misses the mark. It reminds me of like the Western Silent Hill games, which are not great, like Downpour or Homecoming or something like that, where it's just constant fighting, and it really takes away from the atmosphere and the gameplay. Actually, it takes away from the atmosphere and the ambience and the story. I don't mind combat, but like there's just too much of it. I mean, this
Yeah.
time you're fighting waves of enemies. Like there's parts of the game where like you unlock something and then like it does like the Devil May Cry God of War thing where it locks you in an area and you have to fight like a wave of enemies to get to progress. And it's like they try to make it like an action game, and it's like it doesn't have the combat to do that. So
Yeah.
that was one of my big issues with this game. So overall, my negatives of this game are the combat is pretty bad. At times okay, but pretty bad. The pacing's uneven. There's some technical issues. There's durability, all those like meters, stamina, durability, the sanity meter, all didn't really need to exist. Didn't need to be put in this game. The puzzles and the symbolic cultural references could have been more explained better for a Western audience. And then I thought the combat was just too much. There was just way too much fighting in this game. So, like I
Yeah.
said,
I had a
sorry.
funny experience um where they where I originally was going to go with what Seb had, right? He had puzzle on easy and combat on hard. And I was like, all right, well, let's give it a shot. And then I died like 3 or 4 times in a row to a basic enemy because I was trying to master the basics of like dodging and parrying and attacking and whatever, right? And I was like, fuck this. So I put it down on easy, which was pretty predictable. And even then, for me, this game just doesn't hit. I literally and figuratively, like, I just don't like the combat, and I wasn't feeling engrossed in the story like I really wanted to be. At least in Silent Hill 2, I really felt like motivated by the characters and the dialogue and the acting and the story, so that even at times where I was like, well, the combat's a little clunky, it was fine because the story was so strong, everything else was so strong that I didn't really care. And it's not like, again, the combat was fine, it wasn't bad, it just wasn't particularly good. And like when you're using a gun, like honestly, I felt it to be perfectly suitable and serviceable, even for the most part, kind of like Outer Worlds one's combat, right? So like a 3 or 3.5 out of 5 kind of situation for the combat specifically. Here, it's like the combat just doesn't justify my investment. It just feels really, really finicky, really clumsy and clunky. And like, again, I understand trying to make her believable as a teenage girl who's swinging for the fences against demons and shit,
Yeah.
but for me, that doesn't make for an enjoyable thing. And like you said, as soon as I heard about breakable weapons, stamina, and a sanity meter, I'm like, though, all three of those things are red flags to me, just by themselves. But together, I was really worried I wasn't gonna like this game. And yeah, unfortunately, it just didn't connect for me. I think there's gonna be people who are still gonna love it despite its problems, like Seb, and maybe even like it more than Seb. But for me, it's also just a problem of the time that we're in. Like, I could be playing Hades 2, which is for me, incredibly satisfying game that I love and know I love, and the combat is so fluid and good. Plus, I get that great story. Or I could be playing Ghost of Yote, which we'll talk about next week, which is a really great game. Not quite as good as Hades, but beautiful, and it has a interesting story and great characters. Like, so it's also a problem of it's also a factor of the time that we are in right now in terms of the games that are coming out. I just have better options for me personally. And I'm also just not as big of a Silent Hill fan as Seb is, quite frankly. I didn't grow up with the series. Silent Hill 2 Remake was the first Silent Hill game I ever played, and I loved it. It was in my top 5, I think, last year or whenever it came out. So, I was really hopeful for this, but unfortunately didn't land.
2 years ago.
But, definitely, still give it a shot if
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
really like that.
Yeah, like if you like horror games and you like psychological horror games, you can probably look past some of the issues of the combat. If you're like a casual general audience looking for a horror game to play, like this is probably not gonna be for you. Um, I just wish the combat in this game was better. I just wish there was less enemies. Like it was in conflict with itself. It was like it wanted to be an action game while trying to balance with the horror, and it just turned into a mess at times. Inconsistent. So it's like a 7.5, 8 out of 10 for me. Somewhere around there. I probably have an 8 just because I like Silent Hill and the horror and all that. Like I really like the story and all that.
Right.
So the pros outweigh the cons, but I don't know. Depends what mood I'm in for the day, I guess. It's Starfield 8.
Sure.
Starfield 8, as you say. All right. So that concludes our episode tonight. Next week we're gonna talk about Ghost of Yotai, of course. That's gonna be our main topic. I'm gonna talk about Digimon Time Stranger, which I've been really enjoying, and I'm also gonna talk about what else am I playing? I'm forgetting the other game. I'll remember. Anyway, Digimon and Ghost of Yotai are the main ones. Is there any other games you're playing besides Hades 2?
No, Ghost of Yotei and Hades 2 are basically the only ones that I've been playing, and are probably the only ones
Oh,
I'll have time for. I will probably play some Digimon just so I can comment on it, and of course I did play the demo.
yeah. Oh,
But other
yeah.
than that, yeah, I won't have time to say anything about anything.
I'm also gonna be playing Final Fantasy I have been playing Final Fantasy Tactics, so I will talk about that as well. So those are my 2 games next week. All right, Dory, thanks for joining me,
Yeah.
and happy Halloween season for everybody. Best month of the year. Um, Next week, well, we'll probably do our first horror Halloween discussion topic of of the month as well. We'll talk about it. All right, everybody, you have a good night. Take care, everybody, and peace.